I like talking about my industry. I've been doing this a long time now. Got connected with AREA, Roadmasters, B&B, AREMA as a way to give back. Now, this industry has been so good to me. I mean, I've got a nearly 50-year career. I'm still doing consulting. I still get paid every now and then to go out and kick rocks. But I got to give something back. I got to share my experiences, my knowledge.
You may know the American Railway Engineering and Maintenance of Way Association, or AREMA, as the, quote, keepers of the manuals. You may know them as the, quote, people behind the largest annual railroad conference in North America. Heck, you may not know about AREMA at all. This podcast is designed, no pun intended, to change your view of who AREMA is and how AREMA has changed the trajectory of many railway careers over its 100-plus year history. Welcome to Platform Chats with your host, Walt Blesser, where he takes a moment to discuss the impacts AREMA has had on the very people who are proud to be called members. Are you ready to roll with AREMA?
This episode is brought to you by Unabridged Structures. Unabridged Structures provides mentorship and advisement to emerging technologies and early-stage companies focused on infrastructure. They have a proven track record of bringing technology solutions to the railway industry. For more on Unabridged Structures, go to unabridgedstructures.com.
Welcome, everybody, to episode 3 of Platform Chats. I'm your host, Walt Blesser, a member of AREMA, currently a director on the Structures Functional Group, and I got to tell you, I am excited about today's episode. I am excited about every episode. I know there were some hurt feelings when I mentioned that episode 2 might have been better than 1. That's been cleared up. That's water under the bridge. And as a bridge guy, I feel very comfortable saying that. Today is really cool for me because I get to speak with one of my mentors, not just as one of the first people I interacted with as a young design engineer, but also I would consider a mentor to me on how to do an AREMA membership correctly. If you want to consider your AREMA membership a career, this is the guy to talk to because this guy has done it all. He's been a member of AREMA since before I was born, and he still is as active, if not more active, than many of what I would say the AREMA membership base currently has. So with that introduction, Steve Hill, welcome to the show.
Wow, thanks. I didn't know I was that famous. Thank you.
And there it is. And in case you don't, if you heard it once, you're going to hear it, I hope, a lot during this episode. Steve's got a contagious laugh. I like to say that Steve, there's a term I like to use. He carries good weather. So when Steve's around in general, he can tend to light up the room, and I think he's going to light up this podcast. So Steve, I got to tell you, man, I've been reviewing everything you sent to me, and I've known you for a long time, and it's hard to know where to start, except I do know as a young guy, I used to address shop drawings to your name at Canadian Pacific, but I'm pretty sure that's not where you started your career, is it?
No. I started at really right out of the University of Kansas, where we both went. I graduated the first time there with a history degree and put that history degree to best possible use by starting to work for the Union Pacific on the section crew as a laborer. Just, I could see KU there up on the hill as I was pounding spikes. Went on from there into Kansas City on a survey crew with some of the engineering background that I had before I switched to history to some use. And then figured after 3 or 4 years of doing that, I wasn't going to get terribly much farther in this industry without the engineering degree. And it only took me 2 semesters. I kind of laid off 2 semesters to finish my engineering degree. And then I went from there to Bloomington, Illinois for the Union Pacific, Illinois Central Gulf, I'm sorry. And worked a year there, then worked a year in Mississippi on a 4R project where I did a lot of drilling holes in the Yazoo Clay, the Mississippi Delta, a lot of soil stabilization work. And then I went to the Sioux Line, 1980. Spent a lot of time there.
So Sioux Line, for those of us that are maybe not as seasoned in the railroad industry, the Sioux Line is now currently part of the Canadian Pacific, correct? And it sounds like they might have been a part of it for a long time.
Right. Sioux Line was majority owned by CP for most of its history, really. At some time in the 80s, CP said, well, what are we going to do with this American railroad we own down there? The industry started to change. This is after Staggers. Boy, we got to figure out what to do. And so they played around a little bit and eventually bought the Milwaukee Road, spun off Wisconsin portion of the old Sioux Line, which became Wisconsin Central, and now, ironically enough, is Canadian National. The more things change in this industry, the more they stay the same.
No kidding. And you were, when I remember I came on board in 02, roughly, I worked with you for a couple of years on the Black River Bridge project up there in La Crosse, Wisconsin. And shortly thereafter, I believe you packed it up and moved to the Bay Area. Is that right?
Right. Yeah. The Black River Drawbridge project was the last project I worked on at CP before leaving to go to California. It was one of those, we got almost done, and all the problems were solved, so I left. Or if you want to look at the other way, I left and all the problems were solved. So whatever you think, whatever you like to, however you want to view it.
depending on which way you want to look at it. But then
Right.
I remember you spent a good 10 years working for Caltrain as the chief engineer of track and structures there in San Carlos. And I remember visiting you there a few times. Why don't we talk a little bit about your work there?
Yeah, I came out to Caltrain, the commuter operation, the former Southern Pacific operation on the peninsula, San Francisco to San Jose. Came out here as director of construction initially and finished up the project where they were converting the old SP double track ABS jointed rail operation to multiple mainline, all welded rail, mostly on concrete ties and all CTC, and going from 24,000 passengers today to 60,000 passengers over that time period. Completely different operation.
I was going to say, why don't you talk a little bit about the difference between working for a class one and then working for an agency like Caltrain, which I believe, if my memory serves me correctly, they receive funding from the state, federal. They have both freight trains on that track as well as passenger. Is that correct? Maybe give a quick overview of the big differences between that and maybe CP.
Yeah, it's called culture shock. There's the culture shock of coming from the Midwest to California, which is a strange and wonderful place to live.
I believe that.
But I'm coming from Minnesota. I'm out here in January, and it's everybody around here. It's 40 degrees outside, and everybody's wearing parkas, and I'm walking around in short sleeves. I'm saying, "What? What do you mean it's cold?" And then the culture shock in the work environment of a for-profit railroad to a publicly funded agency, just trying to wrap my head around, okay, where's all this money coming from? Why do we have all this money and what are we doing with it? And is that the right way to spend it? And they say, basically, hey, the money's there, spend it. Okay. It's a different way of doing things. And I never really got super comfortable with it. It was more politics than engineering, ultimately.
And you strike me as a guy that probably likes the engineering more than the politics, but maybe I'm wrong.
Understatement, yeah. Duh.
Yeah. So, but I gotta give you credit, Steve. You hung in there for a solid 10 years. I mean, that's most people. After a few years of a bad fit, probably would have split. Because I know after that you went over to the Iowa Pacific Holding Company, which I believe runs multiple short lines across the country. Is that
Yeah,
right?
they had 10 properties around the country, and a couple of properties in England. Actually got to go see. That was fun, but different. You're going from a Class One railroad to a publicly funded railroad with money coming out their ears to a short line with no money whatsoever. Talk about another culture shift. So I kept thinking back to the days when the Sioux Line acquired the Milwaukee. The Milwaukee Road had been in bankruptcy for so many years that those guys, the phrase is, they'd done so much with so little for so long. They are now fully qualified to do anything with nothing. That was the Milwaukee guys. What a spirit! I mean, those are some tough railroaders and really top-notch railroad because they had to be. And then go to Caltrain with money for everything, and then to a short line with no money for anything, and I'm back in the doing everything with nothing again. It's been fun.
Yeah, I bet. It sounds like quite this circle of life there as far as a railroader is concerned. I mean, you've got, like you said, privately funded CP, and then you've got publicly funded Caltrain, and then you got a short line, which is a whole nother story. And although the topic of this podcast is not 100% the business side of railroading, so why don't we, instead of defining Class 1 short line and publicly funded transits, let's talk a little bit about the reason we're here, which is your experience with AREMA. And like I said at the beginning of this podcast, you have been a member of AREMA since, when did you join? I mean, you've been a member of AREMA throughout the entire railway career that you've held, correct?
I joined AREA first in 1975, and you had to have 3 years railroad experience to join. So I was 3 years in. I joined as soon as I could, basically. My first
And
committee
so
was.
that
I'm sorry.
that hasn't changed. You still got to have 3 years of experience. I'm glad you brought that up. I know a lot of young folks have reached out to me too since we started this podcast, and I know what you just said is correct. So when you graduate or when you start your career, you become an associate member, right? And then a full member 3 years later. You're eligible to be a full member of AREMA 3 years later, which I believe gives you the ability to vote on technical material, amongst other things. Is that correct?
I can't remember if there was AREA had associate members at that time. I'm not sure they did, but it was. I was on the survey crew in Kansas City at the time, and I got a couple of questions. Well, why do you want to join AREA? Well, I want to learn about this industry I'm working in. I want experience on. I want to learn how to run a rail gang. I want to learn how to run a tie gang, things like that. So one summer, a couple of summers, I got sent out on the spray train on the Kansas division. So going Kansas City to Denver at 20 miles an hour. That's thrilling. Uh, and the interesting thing was, I worked for Bill Wimmer when he was division engineer in Kansas City. You people out there with the long memories remember Bill Wimmer, who eventually became chief engineer of the UP. So yeah, I knew Bill Wimmer back in the old days.
Way back when. And I believe he has offspring that also work for Union Pacific, doing a good job over there for the big railroad out of Omaha.
Mm-hmm.
And doing 20 miles an hour across Kansas. I mean, I'll tell you right now, driving from Kansas City to Denver on I-70 at 80 miles an hour is not very fun either. So I can only imagine what 20 is like. So you joined AREA, and what is the difference between AREA and AREMA? What we would consider AREMA today?
Well, AREMA is a combination of four predecessor organizations: AREA, Roadmasters and Maintenance Way Association, which is actually the senior organization. I say that with pride. Railway Railway Bridge and Building Association, and the Communications and Signal part of the AAR. Those are the four predecessor organizations that make up what is now known as AREMA. So I joined AREA, soon got involved with Committee 1, which is track and ballast. And I worked on one of the subcommittees on ballast, particularly when I was with the ICG. I was doing all the geotechnical work, learning about ballast sections and fouled ballast sections and why all that stuff is coming up through there for bad drainage and stuff. And I learned the one very important thing. There's only three things you need to have good track: drainage, more and better drainage. That's all you need to have good track. Yeah. Which, yeah, as bridges, you want good drainage for your bridges too. You'll apply that later.
So you joined the group. Now, were they still having the annual conference that would, that we recognize today? Were they doing that when you joined? I think at one time you told me you've almost never missed a conference, which is pretty
Yeah.
cool.
AREA conferences were in the spring, and it was just a technical conference held in the Palmer House. Beautiful place in Chicago. And then a few years later, in '78, I joined Roadmasters Association. Roadmasters Association's background, like I say, it's older than AREA, and it was AREA was the technical side. They produced the manual that we have now, manual of railway engineering. That was AREA's document. Those recommended practices, the design of your bridges, the design of your track, things like that. That was AREA. Roadmasters was an organization of the middle and lower supervisors, the people who did the work. AREA created the recommended practice. Roadmasters and the B&B associations did what those recommended practices were. They put it to work. They were the hands-on people. So there was two different philosophies. Roadmasters and B&B always held their conferences together in the fall. And every 4 years, they had an equipment show. The equipment show was always Roadmaster B&B. It was never AREA. So the equipment shows that we have now every year is a legacy of Roadmasters and B&B.
Okay. Which I think, if you want to get right into it, Committee 10 for the structures functional group, if correct me if I'm wrong, but that represents what used to be Roadmasters B&B group. Is that correct?
It's really, Committee 10 is really the old B&B Association. Roadmasters, I had become, in 1992, I was president of the Roadmasters Association. And the merger with all of these to become AREMA happened in 98, 99. And there was a lot of gnashing of teeth and beating of breasts by all the organizations. We're the lead, we're the best. Work through all of that forming, storming, norming, and performing to become AREMA, what we are now, very effectively now. And we had to come together. So Committee 10 really was the B&B Association. Their first meeting, there were 10 of us there, met at the AREA conference in the spring, and we had a room and said, okay, we're going to be this committee. And we picked the name Structures, Maintenance, and Construction. Came together as one of the few new committees that was formed with the formation of AREMA. Roadmasters had the same option to do it, but chose not to.
Oh, so what happened to them?
They were, I guess, content to be, absorbed into the various track related committees that existed. But B&B Association was very adamant that they wanted to preserve the reach into the bridge supervisor level. AREA always had the reputation of being a chief engineers club. And Roadmasters and B&B were the hands-on guys. That's how they looked at each other. It wasn't strictly true, but that was the perception in many people, because AREA wrote the standards, recommended practices, and Roadmasters B&B put them in practice and made it work. So all that, like I say, forming, storming, norming, and performing that's become AREMA, those feelings are gone until AREMA said, okay, we're going to form some teams. So they formed a maintenance way team, a bridge team, and a couple of other teams. It was interesting to sit there, and then they said, yeah, okay, they're going to make these teams committees, and Team 42, which was bridges, uh, was rather than set up as a separate committee, was said, okay, you're going to become part of Committee 10. So now we are 20 years later looking at Team 42 becoming part of Committee 10. And here are these earnest, talented, mostly middle management people who were on Team 42 coming in and being the rabble rousers in Committee 10. That Committee 10 was the rabble rousers into the new AREMA. So it was fun to watch that dynamic go on. That, yeah, hey, you're saying the same things we said 20 years ago. We're on the same side here. So it was fun to watch that happen and make things work.
Well, sure. And the goal of any, consensus committee, consensus organization is to get everybody's voice heard,
Mm-hmm.
right? So you want to hear from the guy that's has the PhD that understands the metallurgy of the structure we're talking about, and you want to hear from the guy that's got to bust
Yeah,
rivets
yeah,
and be out there in the field,
yeah,
right? Performing the work that's on the plans. And so I think that's the beauty of Committee 10 too, is that in the structures functional group, we've always had that voice, if you will, right, of the folks in the field performing the work.
yeah. And that's reflected, in our bridge inspection handbook and our bridge inspection seminar. That's why that bridge inspection seminar is a direct legacy from the B&B Association. They did that seminar. I took that seminar in the 80s and thoroughly enjoyed it. Sitting there and listening to the Don McCammons of the world tell me about what it means to, this steel bridge I'm looking at here. And Don McCammon is still one of our instructors for the bridge seminar we've done 30 times now since we.
That is that I was going to say, that's a great transition. I know a lot of people think about AREMA as the people that create the manual for railway engineering, but Committee 10 has a robust history of performing. Well, maybe that's not the right word. Sometimes it's the performance, right? But performing these seminars for bridge inspection, scour. I know you guys have been working on a fix it
Right.
seminar, and I know you're passionate about. You're a very passionate guy, and you're a very passionate guy when it comes to getting out there in front of frontline individuals and preaching the gospel of that is railroading. Am I wrong about that?
You're not wrong about that. I like talking about my industry. I've been doing this a long time now. Got connected with AREA, Roadmasters, B&B, AREMA as a way to give back. This industry has been so good to me. I mean, I've got a nearly 50-year career. I'm still doing consulting. I still get paid every now and then to go out and kick rocks. But I got to give something back. I got to share my experiences, my knowledge. I teach these bridge inspection scour seminar. I do mostly the scour side, but I've taught virtually every segment of the bridge inspection seminar too, one time or another over the 30 some times we've delivered it over the last 15 years. I think we've been doing it now. I have fun. That's the time that I have the most fun is in a classroom like that, or we're going to a virtual presentation of this system now. But in there, talking to people and listening to their experience, the best time of those seminars, and you've taught a couple, so you know what I'm talking about, is when you have a subject and then someone in the class says, "Oh yeah, this is how we dealt with that," or "Yeah, we've tried this and it didn't work." But you get this interaction, discussion going on. That's the most valuable time of those classes.
Oh, I agree with that completely. I mean, I think the interaction with the audience is far better than anything you've got on the PowerPoint slides. And I think this is where your passion comes out. I think you like to get in there and you're animated and you're dealing with the students in a way that, whether you've got, I know you have 50 plus years of experience and you might be dealing with a guy that's got not even two.
Yeah.
and you treat them the same. And I think that's awesome that you do it the way you do it. And I guess that brings me to a point of the value you get out of AREMA. Are you using it mostly as a vessel to give back to others, or would you say that you also have found lifelong friendships that have helped your career, or maybe potentially helped you find that opportunity at Caltrain? I'm going this where I'm going with this is the same question I ask every guest. If I just walked into your office and I've got 2 or 3 years of experience and I have a flyer in my hand that says join AREMA, and I go to Steve Hill, why should I join AREMA? What are you going to tell that individual? And remember, Steve, we have a time cap. So
First, I'd want to know, okay, where's your area of interest? You're coming into this, you've been in this industry a couple, 3 years now. Are you more interested in track, bridges, locomotives? Where is it? Where do you, what's your passion? What drives your interest in being in this industry? And then, okay, they say track. Well, okay, doing track design. You like running a tie gang? Have you run a tie gang? Have you been on a tie gang? You like bridges? Okay. Have you worked with the bridge crew? Have you been out on a change out where you've got, unlike the highway departments who can just build a little, you know, divert a road over somewhere and it takes 6 months to build a bridge, where in I rarely had more than 12 hours, last train to first train, to get a bridge in and run it and operable. So where's your passion? What are you most interested in as someone new to the industry? And you can go find anything in AREMA to feed that. And this is where the committees come in.
I love it. So you're going to help them narrow down that passion, which I could not agree with you more. And then from there, assist them in joining the appropriate technical committee.
Yeah, where their interests lie.
And then while there, I mean, you've done it all. I mean, you joined the technical committees. You've been a secretary and a vice chair and a chair, and you were on the board, and then you were all the way to president. So what? I guess that's a good question. Is what if the same young individual looks at you and says, "Okay, well, I'd love to follow your leadership path." Some of those roles are 3 years at a time. So what keeps you coming back, Steve? You haven't missed a conference since 1976. What keeps you coming back to this organization?
The people I get to know. Um, there was this young engineer out of HNTB who did this bridge design for lacrosse. Hey, I'm talking to him now, and look at what he's done. Look at what Walt has done in his career, and he's got his own company now again, and that's fantastic. He's followed his passion, and if I've helped in any way in that, I'm glad. But that's what I would like to be able to do with more people. Yeah, but then you get to work with some extraordinary people. I mentioned Don McCammon. What he doesn't know about bridges ain't worth knowing. Uh, I certainly, like I say, I've taught all of the segments at one time or another in the bridge inspection course, but I'm in most of those, I'm delivering Don McCammon's words. I'm just the vessel that delivers Don McCammon's thoughts as best I can. And then you get to work with somebody like a John Unsworth. I think right now he's probably, in my opinion, he's the premier railroad bridge designer in North America, if not the world right now. I have a signed copy of his book, Design and Construction of Modern Steel Railway Bridges. I even have a photo credit in that book. So, these are the kind of connections you work with these people. The REMSA side, the equipment side, the big, huge equipment shows that we do. My first project I worked on at the Soo Line was transform all of the section crews from mostly motor car and truck to get around there, hand tools, to put them all in high rail boom trucks with hydraulic tools. And I got to work with some really good suppliers in the industry. Auto Truck out of Chicago built most of the trucks. And you learn a lot about design of trucks, and you got to build a huge body, put all these tools on there, and then you continually fight the battle of the section crew is carrying all of this stuff, and they keep throwing more junk on there. That pretty soon, anytime somebody brings an extra sandwich in their lunchbox, the truck's overweight. You know, and he always had that problem. You still have it now. Learning about that, and the flip side of that is obviously you're laying off a lot of track people because you're eliminating a lot of section crews because now you're giving them more mobility that every other section crew is now gone. So there's pluses and minuses to everything you do. The company wants this done, and here's why you're doing it. And then, okay, here's an effect. You're getting rid of half of your labor force. And if you look in Railway Age magazine, they always have that in their first couple pages about the railroad industry. It says 125,000 employees. When I started there, it was over 500,000, approaching 1 million. So you see how the industry has shrunk. Part of that is giving people better tools and safer tools to do their job. These are the kind of things. This is why I love this industry. It's fun. I do this more for fun now than really because I'm semi-retired, but I still have fun doing this stuff. Am I rattling on enough?
Yeah, and it seems like you have a relatively unquenchable thirst for learning and learning new things, and I feel like that's been a theme in the stuff you've talked about today is that you might have a passion for bridges or accelerated bridge. I guess they call it accelerated bridge construction if you work outside of the railroad industry, but in the railroad industry, you call that bridge construction.
Yeah, that's normal. That's how we
That's
do
normal.
things.
That's just normal. But at the same time, you just spent a few minutes talking about, using hydraulic tools. So, I guess your point really there is no matter what your passion is, you're going to be exposed or have the ability to be exposed to so much more than you might have ever thought you have interest in just by attending the conferences. I mean, I don't know about you, but I love the fall conference.
Mhm.
And I know that you have been basically a conference. I don't want to say you're a conference organizer, but talk a little bit about your involvement with the national conference, Steve.
Well, back before AREMA was created, when there was still things, AREA had the organization set up that when someone from a railroad was elected president, they brought someone to that spring conference who was basically their gopher for the meeting and making sure all the other stuff got to happen. And they were part of what was called the Conference Operating Committee. In 1988, I think it was, sounds right, Warren Peterson of the Sioux Line was elected president of AREA. And I came to that conference as part of the Conference Operating Committee to help. That's the group, the volunteer group that puts on the technical conference, makes sure all the speakers are there, does the registration, gets everybody signed in, and all of that. And that conference operating committee still works now is the backbone of delivering the conferences every year in equipment shows. As a current member, you go to now. They staff all of the registration areas, the doors into the meeting rooms, make sure check everybody's badges and all that. I've been on the conference operating committee since 1988. You don't get off that conference operating committee once you're on. And
Can anyone join that? I mean, can I join that? What my experience has been. I've been part of different technical committees, but I would assume that the conference operating committee is always looking for a few good folks.
yeah, anybody can join. Absolutely, we're always looking for more people. And like I say, these are the people who make the conference happen. These are the guys standing at the doors and looking at your badge, and they say, "Oh, you got the right badge for today." But it's working with the headquarters staff, Desiree and Stacy, who are the headquarters people who are organizing, and they're the bosses. The Wizard of Des does everything. She's amazing, and Stacy, who's head of technical sessions, and Beth, our CEO, great people to work with, fun people to work with, but they're busy like crazy making sure the president gets around and gets to his has his script with him and delivers all of the stuff and organizing all of the breakout sessions, the Tuesday technical sessions for every you got 6 or 7 different streams. You got track and bridges and things like that. All the functional groups delivering their own really good quality presentations about bridge replacement or technical design of new technology for rail detection, things like that. So these
Sure.
are the people in the background that make that conference work for all of the people attending. That's a fun group to be with because there's a lot of old friends that have been on this committee for a long time too.
And I'm guessing you're probably jonesing to get back to a real in-person conference. Unfortunately, it sounds like this year's is going to be virtual as well,
Yeah,
and it's looking like what 2022.
yeah, probably 22. I
And
hope.
yeah, and if my memory serves me right, that's going to be in Denver.
I think you're right. Your hometown.
Right. Well, that's why it's coming here.
Yeah, I figured that.
It was a simple
it's the
request.
Walt Blesser honor.
Yeah, I put that request in about 20 years ago.
Yeah, good,
And
good.
I'm happy to see that it's working out.
Not even knowing you'd be living in Denver by then.
That's right.
Pretty astute of you.
Yeah. Fantastic. Well, I mean, I guess my last question is again, you got your guy, your gal that's sitting out there right now, and any last words of advice you'd like to give that person before they embark on their railway career, Steve?
I heartily encourage you to join in this great industry. It's fun. It's a group of people who dedicated to making industry successful. And because it is a for-profit group as opposed to a wholly publicly funded group, it's a different attitude. And now certainly their members are from publicly funded agency. Obviously, I was Caltrain part of that, but it's the core focus is this is an industry that mostly has to do it on their own merit. Class ones receive pitifully little public subsidy. There's always the comparison. Well, look at all the subsidies the trucking industry and the airlines get compared to the railroads. Okay, there's that. I'm the rugged individualist. I can thump on my chest and say, "Boy, look at it, aren't we good?" But they had to come through a lot, and the bankruptcies of the '70s and the tough times of the '60s and '70s and the change in regulation have made it a thrilling industry to be part of.
I agree. And as a guy that's many years younger and entering the industry later, I still have the same passion that you do. I'm excited about what the future holds. I think that the technology we're seeing, you mentioned changing from the hydraulic tools and how that potentially eliminated some jobs and some of the work you did in the past. I think, well, I guess some things never change. I mean, we're seeing technologies and drones and trucks that drive along and inspect the track instead of people walking. And I think the biggest benefit is it's becoming safer. It's always been a dangerous industry. I think we're becoming safer than we've ever been, and I think that all the cool technologies we're seeing in other industries, what people don't understand is they're being used in the railway industry as well. And I can tell you right now, that's what keeps me coming back. And so, Steve, I just want to say thank you. I'm running up against my little time meter here.
Yep.
It says that we need to wrap it up. So,
All right.
thanks again for joining us on Platform Chats. And it sounds like I hope to see you at a Committee 10 meeting maybe this summer. What do you think?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, at least probably be virtual still, but maybe they're talking about trying to go to St. Louis. I think we haven't heard any details yet, but hopefully we can actually be there.
Well, that's where I'm going to wrap it up, Steve. I'm going to say see you in St. Louis.
Yep.
And thanks again for being on.
And thanks for inviting me, Walt. I had a fun time. Always good talking to you.
Absolutely. Take care. Bye
Okay,
now.
thanks. Bye.
Thank you for rolling with AREMA on today's episode of Platform Chats. For further information about AREMA, please visit arema.org or contact us at info@arema.org.